Chapter 2. The Tribunal's Doubt. The Radiant Tribunal woke before dawn. It always did, long before the city's merchants lifted their shutters or bakers stoked their ovens. Light already burned within the Tribunal's 7 spires. White gold flames fed by consecrated oils and carefully tended relics. From a distance, the structure looked like a promise carved from marble. Order, certainty, and judgment made manifest. Up close, the stone remembered too much. High Justicar Malrick stood alone on the upper balcony of the eastern spire, hands folded behind his back, watching dawn's spar stir beneath the pale wash of morning light. The city spread below him in concentric rings. Temples, guild halls, barracks, then the common quarters beyond. Smoke from hearth fires curled upward like prayers, too tired to reach the heavens. The light should have felt strong here. It didn't. Malrick felt the weakness like a pressure headache behind his eyes. A subtle thinning, a faint resistance when he reached inward to brush against the divine stream. To most, the sensation would have been imperceptible. To Malrick, who had spent decades listening not just to what the gods said, but how they said it, the change was unmistakable. Something was wrong. He had felt it for months now, at first as a faint distortion, like static at the edge of prayer, then as delays, flickers, silences where there should have been answers. And now even the faithful were noticing. A soft knock echoed from the chamber behind him. "Enter," Malrick said without turning. The door opened quietly. A junior adjutant stepped in, head bowed, robes immaculate despite the early hour. "High Justicar," the man said. "The morning reports are ready." Malrick turned at last. His face was composed, serene, every inch the embodiment of divine authority. Only the faint tension in his jaw betrayed irritation. "Begin," he said. The adjutant swallowed and unrolled the parchment in his hands. 2 paladins reported delayed responses to prayer during night watch. One described it as like shouting into fog. Another claimed the light answered, but only partially. Malrick's eyes narrowed slightly. "Names?" "Knight Lecter Harven and Initiate Pel Sol," the adjutant replied. "Both sworn to Solon." Of course they were. "And the third report," Malrick prompted. The adjutant hesitated. "Acolyte Jessa of the Southern Cloister reported contradictory impressions during a healing rite. She believed she was guided to let a wounded man die." Silence stretched. Malrick's fingers tightened behind his back. "Believed?" he asked. "She did not obey," the adjutant said quickly. "She continued the rite. The man lived." Malrick nodded once, slow and thoughtful. "And what conclusion did she draw from this impression?" The adjutant lowered his eyes. "She fears corruption in the divine stream." There it was. The phrase was spreading. Malrick dismissed the adjutant with a gesture. "See that Acolyte Jessa is reassigned to scripture copying. No more field rites until further notice." "Yes, High Justicar." When the door closed again, Malrick returned his gaze to the city. Corruption in the divine stream. If that idea took root, it would rot the tribunal from the inside out. Paladins were not philosophers. They were weapons. Disciplined, consecrated, obedient. Their strength came not from flexibility, but from certainty. The moment they began to question whether a command was truly divine, the entire structure of holy authority weakened. And someone was encouraging that doubt. Malrick felt no guilt at the thought that followed. If the gods would not preserve their own clarity, then someone had to. Whispers in marble halls. By mid-morning, the inner halls of the tribunal buzzed with subdued activity. Scribes hurried between chambers with scrolls tucked under their arms. Paladins moved in disciplined silence, armor gleaming, boots striking stone in perfect rhythm. But beneath the order ran a current of unease. In the Hall of Concordance, 3 Justicars sat in hushed discussion around a crescent-shaped table of sun-veined marble. Light poured down through the vaulted ceiling, refracting through crystal inlays to scatter radiant patterns across the floor. Justicar alone broke the silence first. "We cannot ignore the reports," she said, fingers laced tightly together. "This is the 4th instance this week." Justicar Rel frowned. "Reports of uncertainty are not the same as proof of corruption." Elowen shot him a look. A paladin receiving contradictory guidance is not uncertainty, it is impossibility. Rel opened his mouth to argue, and Malrick entered the hall. All 3 rose immediately. "Please," Malrick said mildly, "sit. I was already aware of the matter under discussion." Of course he was. He took his place at the head of the table, resting his palms flat against the cool marble. For a moment, he let the silence stretch, long enough for discomfort to settle in. "What we are experiencing," Malrick said at last, "is not corruption." Elowen frowned. "High Justicar with respect. It is interference," Malrick continued smoothly. "A subtle but deliberate distortion imposed upon the divine stream from without." Rel leaned forward. "By whom?" Malrick's lips curved faintly. "By the Oracle." The word landed like a dropped chalice. Elowen stared. "That's an extraordinary accusation." "Is it?" Malrick countered. "The Oracle is a conduit, unique, unregulated, and increasingly independent of tribunal oversight. Her visions are disseminated directly to the populace, unfiltered by our interpretive authority." Rel's brow furrowed. "She has always served the light faithfully." "Faithfully," Malrick echoed. "Or selectively?" He rose and began to pace slowly around the table. "Consider this. Reports of distortion have increased in proximity to Emberfall. The Oracle's health has declined, yes, but her influence has not. She speaks of interpretation where once she spoke of obedience, of moral weight where once she proclaimed divine certainty." Elowen shook her head. "That is not corruption. That is compassion." Malrick stopped behind her chair. "Compassion," he said quietly, "is how lies enter sacred space." The room went still. "You fear her," Rel said cautiously. Malrick smiled. "I fear what she represents. A god-speaker who cannot be commanded. A symbol paladins may begin to trust over the tribunal." Elowen's jaw tightened. "You would turn the order against its own heart." "I would protect the order from fragmentation," Malrick replied. "And if that requires controlling the narrative, so be it." He straightened, authority settling around him like a mantle. "I will issue a formal notice," he said, "effective immediately. Any divine impressions contradicting established tribunal doctrine are to be reported directly to my office. No exceptions." Rel hesitated. "And the Oracle?" Malrick's gaze hardened. "She will be observed." Ali takes shape. In the lower scriptorium, the smell of ink and parchment hung heavy in the air. Scribe Terran sat hunched over his desk, carefully copying a revised proclamation onto fresh vellum. His hand moved steadily, but his stomach churned. The new directive was concise and chilling. All paladins are reminded that divine command, once confirmed by tribunal authority, supersedes personal interpretation. Doubt is not discernment. Hesitation is not virtue. Terran swallowed. Across the room, senior scribes murmured quietly as they worked. No one spoke openly of the changes, but everyone felt them. Margins that once invited commentary were now left blank. Annotations were removed. Hymns were standardized. True was being sanded smooth. A shadow fell across Terran's desk. He looked up to see High Justicar Malrick himself standing there. Terran froze. "Good morning," Malrick said pleasantly. "May I?" Terran nodded mutely. Malrick glanced down at the parchment, eyes scanning the text. For a moment he said nothing. "Do you understand why this is necessary?" Malrick asked. Terran hesitated. "To preserve unity." "Precisely," Malrick said. "The light must speak with one voice. Fragmentation breeds chaos." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You are young, Terran. You will see many things in these halls that trouble you. When that happens, remember this: the world does not need every truth. It needs the right ones." Terran's fingers trembled. "Yes, High Justicar." Malrick straightened and moved on, robes whispering across the stone floor. Terran stared at the page long after he was gone. The forbidden rite. That night, long after the tribunal had fallen quiet, Malrick descended alone into the sealed sublevels beneath the eastern spire. The air grew colder with each step. The walls here were older, etched with sigils no longer taught. Their meanings quietly retired from official doctrine. At the heart of the chamber lay a circular dais, inlaid with fractured divine runes. Malrick knelt. From within his robes, he withdrew a small object wrapped in black silk, a shard of radiant crystal, dimmed, cracked, but still pulsing faintly. A fragment of divine essence. He placed it at the center of the circle and began to chant. The words were old, forbidden, carefully excised from every canon Malrick himself had overseen. The chamber shuddered as power responded. Light, not Solon's clean judgment, but something strained and siphoned, flowed into the runes. Malrick gritted his teeth as the backlash rippled through him, pain lancing down his spine. "Hold," he whispered. "Just a little longer." The crystal flared. Far above, a god's avatar flickered. Malrick smiled. A seed of fear. By morning, rumors had spread. Nothing concrete, nothing punishable, just whispers. The oracle is unwell. The light is testing us. Some commands must be corrected. Paladins trained harder, prayed longer, trusted less. And in the highest spire of the Radiant Tribunal, High Justicar Malrick stood before a window of stained glass, depicting Solon in flawless judgment, and whispered to himself, "Let them doubt each other." Because doubt, properly guided, was the most effective weapon of all.